under the class on Learning Suite, just kind of like, just so you're aware, under content and exam reviews, we have a few like things up here because we love you and we want you to do well. I recorded this. For whatever reason, you have to like click on it. And it's like, oh, it doesn't work. But for whatever reason, just like you just have to hit enter. It like doesn't actually load the web page. And this is me going over, oh, that's the midterm. That's going to be a problem. I'll fix that. Actually, I think you can just click on my name here and you can just find the final review here. It only has 347 views, so I'm hoping to like really up the ante on that one. So, because the midterm has 517 views, so, but I'll have 2 versions of this recorded, so I think this will be better. The final review, for whatever reason, I did at my house, and I was doing it alone, and I just like skipped a sheet for whatever reason because I wanted to really confuse some people, I guess. It's not a good excuse for why you didn't know how to do something, but we did get some of that in the evaluation, like, I didn't know how to do this because you didn't answer it in the review. There's the answer sheet. Back to Learning Suite. We have, I'm going to be going over this spreadsheet right here. I made some just like a few modifications today, but you guys should be able to kind of make those changes on the fly or not, and you're not going to be like disadvantaged. And also we have the answers here, so if you want to know how to do something, you can check on the answers online. I also wrote this PowerPoint. If you're like really struggling with writing functions in VBA, you can open up that PowerPoint and review it. I will fix it. I have a new file because last week I taught a workshop and let's see, I think it's this one right here, this link right here, we'll go to that. And you can actually watch the instruction on that. It's just 1 hour 15, so watch it 2 times speed and it's only like 40 something minutes or whatever. If you're really struggling with VBA, 15% of the grade, so if you're not concerned about it or you're just like whatever on the grade, don't watch it or just open it up when you're taking the test. What were you saying?
I'll lower the curve for y'all.
It's not going to be too complex. You'll see the idea is we'll have probably a few problems, so it's not going to be like if you don't know VBA or you only know one thing of VBA, you're going to miss all the points. We try and work a little bit like it's kind of like there'll be like a small, medium, large, or like low difficulty, medium, and hard. Some people like any VBA is like on the hard scale, right? But some of it will be like record a macro to do something and just make sure it works. So like easy points, like you should just because you know VBA. This isn't a VBA class, that's not our focus. Okay, any questions about the test? Yeah.
Sorry, this is just about the YouTube reviews.
Okay.
When I click on under the final view, right, you're supposed to link right to it.
I linked the wrong video.
Oh.
I linked the midterm video. I'll fix that because I went to fix something and clearly I didn't fix it.
What is the YouTube? Like, what's your channel?
You just click on it.
If you click on my name, you can just on my, like, so that one goes to the midterm. You can see my name should appear, L. Baranow. And you should just be able to click on that and see my other videos. So, okay. And you can even watch a discussion I have about some programming assignment, but that's whatever. Okay. Any other questions? And no? Okay. I guess we'll just get into it. So, just have to put some little music here, right? Get ready. Here's like a little thing that I found this morning. Boss, how good are you at PowerPoint? Me? I excel at it, boss. Was that a Microsoft Office pun? Me? Word. Okay, so just to kind of like lighten the mood, like everybody should just feel really good about this exam. Okay, so also just yeah, so too many spreadsheets, right? Okay, so while we're doing the review, it's a good time to ask questions like, also we did this in class, how do we do that, or how can we apply this? It's also a good time to say, hey, I can't see what you're writing on the board, so can you zoom in or like make it bigger? So that's also a good time to remind me of that. So just, it won't hurt my feelings. Yeah?
Just as like you may have addressed this earlier, but is this going to be comprehensive over everything we've done for the whole semester?
Just the second half. So you'll still want to review. My recommendation, my personal recommendation is what I would do is I'd open up every single assignment, every single thing on my computer, and I would just click through the tabs, click at the formulas, click into them to see, oh, this is where we use that weird date function, or this is where we use that one thing. So then on the exam, you're like, oh, I remember, even though this is conditional formatting, we covered it like in chapter 3 in in another class, because sometimes they overlap, as you might notice. And so it's a good thing to just know where to find things to reference your materials. And also just kind of like be comfortable looking things up online if you like really need to know something. But yeah, and you'll have 3 hours to do the test, just like the midterm. Yeah.
Is it timed?
So yeah, you have 3 hours. So once you open it, you have 3 hours to do your exam, save it, and then email it into the grader, okay? And make sure you copy yourself. Save frequently, because some people have issues. Save it on your desktop, something like that, because that's usually a little better than if you save like on your OneDrive or your Google Drive. Something doesn't sync right, and then you upload the wrong file, and you lose like 20 points, and we can't really do anything for you because you have uploaded the old program. So we don't know what you submitted. So you can also email it, send yourself a copy, re-download it. That's what I usually do if you're really worried about it. But just make sure you do that. Any other questions? Yeah.
So we have to keep all these lights just to make the screen a little bit.
Oh,
Not all of them, I said, just the.
we will try. Let's try. Oh dear. Does anyone know how
Last
to
one
do
that
this?
you did.
Just want these lights. Here, let's try that. Is that okay?
That's great, that's great.
Okay, because then everybody can see the screen, you can see the computer. Yeah. Okay, so first of all, this first question, so this is the financial formulas. So make sure you're well aware of how to use the financial. Make sure if it asks to use PMT, you use PMT. Don't use IPMT, because you will get it wrong and you will lose points. We will usually explicitly tell you to use which formula. So, XIRR, don't use MIRR, because that will give you the wrong answer, and you'll also get docked points, because you'll get like a point just for using the right formula. So even if you don't know how to solve it, do your best. You might get a point or two just from like trying it out and getting the right formula in there. Maybe your formula is wrong, gives you the wrong answer, but the idea behind the program is correct. So make sure you do that. So for this one, your company is looking to invest in a new project. Cash flows from the project are expected at different points of each month. Use IRR and XIRR to find the rate of return on the investment. So we'll go like this, equals IRR. And for values, we'll just highlight our values here. It has you put a guess in, but if you notice, it's in brackets. I don't know if you notice that down there. It's in brackets, which means that it's optional. If you're really curious, you can click into the FX here and see what they're saying. It's optional. It says it's a number that you guess is close to the result, 0.1 or 10% if admitted. So if you think it's going to be 10%, or if you think it's going to be closer to 5, you can put whatever in there. It's going to default and figure out an answer for you. For decimal points, I would just try and leave it whatever it is. Even though this only shows 5%, if you notice when I expand it is 5.19 on this example. So don't worry too much about it. If it says show display that, you want to make sure you're displaying 3 decimals. But Dr. Maservi always rounds your answers. So he's going to be looking for probably 5.20 on this one if this were an exam problem. So if yours is 5.2 and it comes back and says you have the answer wrong, just know that we do a little bit of rounding just because the computer can kind of mess up on that. This one we'll do XIRR values, but this one also takes the dates. So we'll take dates of the same size, the guess. I think we did 0.05 in the last one. We'll hit enter, and this gives us a different XIRR, and there we go.
So is it necessary to do the guess?
No. So like I said, on this, when you start typing, you'll notice that, well, let me show you. On XIRR, the guess has brackets around it, which means it's an optional parameter or optional input. So you actually don't have to put anything in there. but the idea is it's an iterative calculation. So theoretically, if you hit refresh and refresh and refresh on your worksheet, it actually will recalculate these and maybe get a closer to the right answer. So if you kind of have an estimate, it'll give it a better estimate to be closer. For this class, you probably don't have to worry about it too much, but okay. So you're looking to purchase a bond and you want to compare the present value that you would get on two different bonds. Both have a face value of $1,000 and an annual interest rate of 7%. If bond A will pay $50 twice a year over 10 years, while bond B will pay $100 at the end of the year for 10 years, what is the present value of each bond? So we'll go like this equals present value. The rate is going to be this. And just kind of keep in mind, look at the periods. So this is the yearly rate, but if you notice, it actually says that we're going to be paying out twice a year. So you actually have to divide that by 2 because you only want to apply that 3.5% to each period. So let's do divided by 2 here. Our N per, so this is how many periods. So this is 10 years. However, it says that it's going to be paying 2 times a year. So there's actually 20 periods. So you want to keep an eye on things like this. Times that by 2. The payment, the interest payment is this right here, $50, because that's how much we're getting per period. And the future value, I'm going to put this in as a negative, but he's going to probably give an absolute value to kind of, did I do that right? The finance majors will probably just like hate me for this. Okay, that looks like more like the right answer. Because we're trying to figure out what the value of it is at today, whether or not we'd invested it, right? Don't worry on present value, future value, whether it's negative or positive, because it depends on how you're looking at the situation. Doc's going to take this and he's going to just take the absolute value and he's just going to look at the 123.19 and that's all we're looking at, okay? If someone wouldn't mind having the answers open just to be like, hey, you got the answer wrong, because I make mistakes, especially in front of all of you lovely people. Okay, and then we'll do this one, present value. The rate is going to be 7%, but this is yearly, so we're not going to divide it by anything. The periods, it's 10 periods. The payment's $100, and the future, or the face value, it's going to be this, and we'll hit OK. And now you can kind of look and see the different valuation of those. Okay, you just inherited $100,000 from a rich uncle and want to invest it. If you put it into a portfolio that has a 5% annual return, how long would it take in years to reach $1 million? So on a lot of these problems on the test, we're going to give you all these files, or like all of these things in cells here. Make sure you reference those. If you hard code and type the answer in, there's a chance you'll get it right, there's a chance you'll get it wrong. So let's use what's actually here, because the idea is then, because what Dr. Maservi might do is he might go in and throw in $1.5 million right here and make sure you get the right answer. Not saying that's what will happen, but just to kind of make sure you're not doing anything wrong. So like up here, rather than typing in the amounts, I reference the cells and it highlights everything so you can make sure you're referencing those amounts up there. So just make sure you're doing that when you're doing this. So this is going to be the time. So we want to use how many periods, right? So we're going to have a 5% annual. The payment are going to be 0. The present value is going to be 100,000, and the future is going to be 1 million. We'll close that out, and it gives us this lovely 47.19 years, right? It doesn't ask you to concatenate in years at the end, so don't do that. Just that's what you'll want to have on your answer. Using the same scenario from Q3, how much quicker would it reach 1 million if you made annual payments of 300,000? So this is just kind of, I think, to give you a comparison. I'm just going to copy and paste these next to each other. So instead, we're going to do something like this, 3,000, and I'm just going to copy this like this so we can just verify. Did I do something wrong? Oh, this also needs to be negative. And then the idea behind this is just going to be this, subtract this, and that's how much quicker we would reach it quicker by 8.43 years by just investing an extra $3,000 per year. Any questions on financial formulas? Yeah.
When I did this on my own, I was just referencing cell B minus, or cell B minus cell C, except it gave me like an error, and so I had to like paste just the value and then just copy down to the difference. Like it was struggling with subtraction basically that I'm using formulas. So
In a case like this, I doubt that you'll have, like, if he wants you to compare, he's probably going to give you both of them on the test, so you shouldn't have too much like issue, because it'll be like basic subtraction. Because when we click into this, because basically how we can evaluate your things. Say this is B37 minus C37. Those are composites of other formulas. So basically, it's going to calculate these with inside. So he's going to probably be looking at the values, and he's going to look to see if you use a subtraction, for example, on this one. And we can tell above if you know how to use future value up above if you're using that correctly. So we're trying to evaluate to make sure you actually know what we're asking for. Okay, so I love this thing here. When it comes to data analysis, I excel. So hopefully that you guys can all say that when you leave the class. Okay, so these are data tables doing what if analysis. I added this extra table down here. You could quickly make this just by copying and pasting this down. And then I just changed these out for some values up here because I just wanted to show you, because there's a one-way table and this is a two-way table, okay? Because I think that it's good to know how to do both for the exam. So for this one, this is a one-way. So it says you are looking at buying a new car. You want to calculate your monthly payment and how much interest you'd end up paying. The car you want to buy is $26,000, but the interest rates have been changing. Fill in the following data table to show the changes from change in interest rate. So this is a one-way table. So first of all, you have to remember that you have to have something up in this top row or on the left-hand side that's a formula that's actually going to be calculated, because the idea is you're going to be changing a value and it's going to give you a specific amount here. So for example, on 4.5%, what the payment amount is. So that would be right here. That's this payment amount. So you can type things in over here and it's not going to affect your data table because it's just doing calculations based off of this. So first of all, we'll highlight this, and then we'll go up here to data. We'll click on what if analysis, data table. This is a one-way data table, so you should only have one thing in your input. So this one, the only thing that's changing that's actually affecting these column values is going to be this row amount. So let's hopefully that I do this right. Well, no. So for me, I always get mixed up on which one I use. And so I usually just do it. And if it's wrong, then I just switch it. It really doesn't take very long. So I'll probably mess up here today, hopefully, so you guys can all feel that like I'm also have things. So obviously this isn't right. See how the data is just like, okay, that's wrong. So it's obviously not this one. So let's go like this. You have to highlight the whole array, because see how this is an array? You can't just go and say, okay, I want to delete this cell. Well, it like just won't let you. So you can actually, you just want to highlight all of the data that you're using and push delete. We'll re-highlight it up here. We'll go like this, what if analysis, data table, and oh, obviously that was a column input, because we know that all that's changing is the interest rate, right? So hit okay, and oh, that looks a lot better, and those actually look like answers that we were looking for. I'm just going to format this. Don't worry about formatting unless it actually says to format it a specific way on the test, which it might, because this is comprehensive. We may say, this should have a $sign, or these should be whatever, like they should have parentheses around it or something like that, but nothing too complicated. So, and we can check this by saying, okay, at 4.5%, we should have 484.29. So 44 like that. And okay, let me just check 4.25 and 481. And looks like we still have the same answer. So we know that we did this right, okay? So now this one is saying, how about the payment? So if we take longer to pay, how can that affect our rate? So the difference with this is I put this red box up here in the corner because you have to remember, you actually have to get, it's a combination of these two fields going into right here. So we're saying based off of that, it has to be this formula here. So what it's going to be doing is it's actually going to copy this formula in here, and it's going to put it here, and it's going to say apply this, boom. Apply this, boom. Apply this, boom. And that's how arrays work. That's really what it's doing, is it's just making this array formula, and Excel has made this really nice for us to just automatically do. So this time we actually want to put the payment amount up in this top corner like this, okay? So if you notice, we have 481.77 here, and we're going to copy over like this. So we'll go back to data, what if analysis, data table, and so we know that the percentage is going to go in the column input. So I'm just going to, like, since I already know that, I don't want to be embarrassed twice in front of you guys. So let's do that. And then for row, we're going to put, this is the periods. So the idea is it's going to take the periods at the top here and it's going to start plugging these into B9. It's going to throw them in there and it's going to say, what's our answer? And it's going to throw this one in there and what's the answer? And that's what the thing is doing for us. So we'll hit OK. And ooh, we've got this nice table. So now we can see, oh, okay, at a certain percentage point and a certain number of periods, now I can decide if I can afford my car. Maybe it has to be under $400, you know? Because another good thing that we could do is say, oh, let's give you some conditional formatting on this. So let's highlight all this. Let's go home and let's say conditional formatting, highlighting cells. So let's say it has to be anything, it has to be greater than, because I'm going to do greater than, and we'll do 400, maybe 399 or something. And let's do it with green. And that's just to see, okay, visually, this is all we can really afford. We have to have a car payment for forever to do this. This is probably not the best way because if you look at your interest, you're going to be paying lots and lots of money for interest, and we don't want to do that, right? Okay. Any other questions on data tables? Yeah.
For some reason, home equity is negative.
They're negative? They should be negative because that's the payment amount. So if we change this to be a positive, then it should just automatically adjust it. The thing I like about data tables is you can quickly like say, okay, I really want these to be in smaller increments. Like I want to see 60, 62, 64. You can just go in and retype over these and it automatically just recalculates those for you, okay? You know, and or maybe we want to go 60, 70, 80, whoops, 80, 90, 100, 110. Like it just kind of depends on how you want to do it. So, and that's what I really like about data tables. Or maybe you need to also include like you got your credit score back and it's really bad, so your car loan's going to be like 8%. So that will probably count into what you're doing here. Okay. Any other questions about tables? Okay. Okay, so now we're going to do lookups. So make sure you're just kind of familiar with the different lookups. Especially, can anyone tell me the difference between a VLOOKUP and a lookup? Anyone want to be brave? So that's a good thing. A VLOOKUP's by column. Also, when you're looking at VLOOKUP, you're looking at one column. It could be any column, and it's looking to the right. It's always looking to the right. The difference is the lookup table will actually look up and say, okay, you can give me this column and this column, and I'm just going to match based on whichever row that you're looking for falls into. Okay. The one limitation. Well, actually, let's start working on this, and I'll show you some limitations with this. So it says use VLOOKUP to find the ID number. Okay, so let's say we're going to use VLOOKUP. Our lookup value is going to be Harry, and we want to look at Harry here. So can we include the header? Does anyone know? Yes or no? Yeah, you can include the header. It doesn't matter because Harry's not going to be in the header, so we shouldn't be worried about that, right? Because if first name is in one of your columns, that's probably a problem. I usually highlight the whole thing just so I don't make any mistakes because I don't want to be off or something's weird. So let's highlight that. And our column index, this is saying, okay, so first we're going to look at this column looking for the first name, and now which column do we want to return? So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is the ID number. So we're looking for column 3. Okay, and then we want an exact match, okay? Because if we put true here, this might give us the wrong answer. Let's put true in here to see what happens. So SO102, oh, that gives us Draco Malfoy. Okay, the reasoning behind this is when you use true, it's an approximation, okay? So what it actually starts doing is it starts going in alphabetical order, and it starts saying, okay, I'm looking for Harry. It starts with an H, right? So, well, either way, it should have given us something differently, but the idea behind the guess is it kind of looks and it's looking for kind of a match and saying, well, let's approximate. So really, it's looking for something close to H, and we'll really notice that when we use the lookup. So let's put this back to false. Hang on, let's put this back to false. False. Okay. Right, that gives us GO, one that's right. Now we want to get his occupation because everyone's always wondering. I'm going to make these absolute up here so I can just copy it down. Let's copy this down. And it's going to say, what are you doing? Because we're looking at the wrong thing. Let's look at B4, right? Okay, and now we want to change this to occupation, and that's column 5. One quick way that we can change this, so maybe we want this to be dynamic. So instead of putting a 5 in here, we could use the match function. So we're looking for a match. So we're looking at this value, occupation, based on this lookup array right here. We want it to be an exact. We'll close that, and oh, that actually gave us the same thing. So maybe we also want to say, okay, now let's just change this to last name. And oh, look at that, it changes automatically for us. And maybe we want to view gender, something like this. That's just something that you can use just so you can see that that's dynamic. Let me just put this on here for you guys. That's just something maybe for your work, you want it to be a little more dynamic, and because maybe you don't want to guess, maybe you have like 800 columns, which is possible, I guess. Kind of crazy to have all that data, but you might be dealing with data sets like that. So maybe more efficient to just look up what the number is and just return it that way. So let's use lookup to find the gender based on last name. So lookup, so this takes up a lookup value. So we're looking for Granger, and the lookup vector is going to be, so we want to find the gender. So we're going to say first here, let's look at this, and the gender, okay? And you'll notice it says NA, and you're like, well, that doesn't make sense because I see it there and it should work. So one thing that lookup does is it's actually kind of doing this idea of faults. It's saying, it's looking through these last names, so it's looking for Granger. So it says, okay, Harry, okay, first of all, Harry, okay, that's after Granger, so let me give you Granger, but then it goes down to G, and it's like, wait a second, these are not in alphabetical order, so there's actually an error with your data, and it goes down to D, and it's like, wait a second, this should have been way up here. And so actually lookups only work based on alphabetized data. So if you highlight this top row here, you can do Control-Shift-L, puts these nice little like data labels on there. You can also get there by going like data and clicking on filter. I'm just going to do this. I'm going to filter by A to Z from last name, or sorry, let's do last name. And oh, look, actually the gender actually works. So there are limitations with lookups because you have to kind of, things have to be in order. If there's duplicates, it's kind of hard to look at that, but you'll kind of have to evaluate your data set. This may be useful just kind of like ad hoc, just like quickly checking something. But I think most people don't tend to use lookup a lot. I would rather use an index match array or an index match, then you can really kind of play with which columns you're returning. But that's just kind of a personal preference. So it says use match and index to fill in the first name based on ID number. So I'm going to go like this. So we're going to say index. So we're going to index the entire thing here. Okay. I'm going to absolute the values here, and then we're going to match. So the idea is we're going to be looking something up, and we want to, because you can give it a row and a column. So if we say row like 3, 4, 5, column 1, 2, 3, it's going to return this value. But we want it to dynamically actually find those values. So we can use the really powerful match, index match combo. So we're going to say our lookup value is the ID number here, and the lookup array is going to be, what am I looking at here? So our lookup array is we're trying to return the first name. So make it the same size as your array. So if we didn't include the header, that's fine. Just make sure you don't include it when you lookup. Otherwise, all of your things are going to be off one. That's just how the arrays are going to be looking at things.
Can you say that again?
So notice how my index right here is H4 to L14. Make sure this is also the same height, 4 to 14, because if I make this 3 to 13 or something, it's going to be off. So when it actually looks at the match, it's going to give you a different value because it's going to be off one in your index. Okay. So if you can include the header or you don't, but just make sure you're consistent. Make sure all of your arrays have the same height, because this is an array right here. This list is an array of values. Okay. Just make sure they're the same height. I'm going to absolute that because it's going to be the same as we copy it down. Then we have the same thing, this match concept here. We can do less than, exact match, or greater than. So maybe you have some like approximations and you don't want it to return an NA if there's an issue. So you can do this less than, that's kind of doing faults, but this one actually allows you to be on either side of that exact. But we're going to do exact match because that's usually what you're going to want to be using this for. You want an exact result based on what you're looking for. Okay, so we'll close that, and so now it's going to find the correct. It's going to find the correct row, but now which number, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5? Which column do we want to replace? I'm gonna put another match in here just because I kind of like this idea of being able to change this and it automatically changing this down here. So let's go like this. We'll put in a match here, and we're gonna say our lookup value is this value here, and our lookup array is gonna be here, and our match type is gonna be 0, and we'll close that, and we'll close it again, and we'll hit OK. So we have an issue here. What's going on? Well, this is a good time to check this. So let's hit this, and we'll hit evaluate, evaluate. Oh, we've got a match issue right off. Oh, because I'm looking at the wrong column, I think. I'm looking at first name, but we're really looking at, because this look.
So it has to be J4.
Yeah, so right here, this lookup should be what I'm looking at, this ID. I should also be looking at the same column, okay? So kind of quickly, you should be able to just grab onto it right here. Oops, just kidding. That might not be as easy. Let's just change it here. J. And oh, perfect. That works great. And let's do that. Oops, something didn't happen because we didn't absolute this top row. Let's make that an absolute there. Copy that down. Oops, I still have an issue. Oh, we didn't absolute our other column. So you really kind of want to watch your absoluting. Let's absolute that. Okay, so that's my formula. Something else that like we might ask you to do on the test, we might say, oh, this should be a drop down, okay? So something we could do is we could go data, and we could click on data validation, and we could make this a data validation box. And here we want to give it a list of values, okay? And our source is just going to be right here, okay? We'll hit OK. So now actually you'll notice, oh, I can look at for the first name, last name, ID number. Here's a good way to check what we did to make sure that we can return the same value. Let's look at their gender. Let's look at their occupation. Okay, any questions on any lookup formulas? That's kind of a little more advanced and kind of full circle some ideas that you might want to use like at your work, because you might want people to be able to kind of look at multiple columns without having to have multiple lookups there. Any questions?
How did you do that drop down thing again?
Okay, so here I clicked on this and I clicked data manager and I clicked data validation. And on the settings, I said list, and I gave it a source, and I just said it's going to be this because that's how we're looking it up within this formula. That's what we're trying to match on which column. You kind of have to be careful if you want it to be super dynamic, but it makes it nice. So then if I go and add another column or something, it just quickly adds that to my list. Okay, just some ideas for you. Okay, so
the sort? I'm sorry.
The what?
Just the sort.
This right here. Is everyone ready to move on? Okay, so this one we're gonna do text. Okay, so just kind of real life example yesterday, I've been writing this big program in ASP.NET C#, and I know that during the VBA functions, we had to remove one character from the end of our string. Do you guys remember that? Like there's a pesky like comma at the end of your string or whatever that you're trying to concatenate some things together. And I just wanted to show that it's like a real big thing in a lot of programs. So if you notice here, I'm actually adding, I have a list up there, which is kind of the same idea that you guys made. And then here I'm actually looping through it. This is C# code. And here this was last night. So I'm looping through each thing in my column. And at the end, there's a comma. And at the end, then I go, okay, let's set it equal to itself. And they have this function called substring. And then I'm just taking the length of the whole thing, subtract 1. And that's same idea. So now you guys can like go and enter the programming world, right? Because if this isn't cut off, this comma at the end, it totally blows up my program, like completely just absolute nothing works. It just shuts the whole thing down. So just some real life example of something I learned in Excel that I'm like, oh yeah, I can quickly use this in another program. Okay. Any questions? No. Okay. You added some new music files to your computer and you want to include them in your Excel playlist, you know, because everyone keeps their Excel playlists in Excel, right? Because you gotta make sure everything's in Excel. You can sort it, do lookups on it. You know, it's so much faster than go to iTunes and doing all that, because because we're Excel people. We just do everything in Excel. Excel's always open, right? Okay, so when you copy the names to Excel, you get the following data. Using text to columns, sort the data into the corrected cell. So what are some methods that we could use here to start breaking this up? Flash fill, what else? Left, there's text, yeah, there's left we can use mid, anything else? Text to columns, those are great things. So when you take the test, try and find the best way. If you know how to use text to columns, like maybe you're like, okay, I can get everything except for this stupid number here, but we know that there's a delimiter, this dash here. Maybe we can start breaking it out. And let's try and get the right data, okay? Because we might give you a data set like this. We don't care how you did it. Unless it specifically says use text formulas, you're free to use whatever you need to use. And it might be even called a clean sheet or a text sheet. So let's just try and use something. So which method are you most uncomfortable with? The left? Okay, so let's start doing that. So something that I always look for when I'm doing text, I say, okay, what can I delimitate this by? Well, first of all, we know all the track numbers are just 2. Now, if it goes over 100, that does become a problem, but that's something that it's not in this data set, okay? So you kind of want to check your data to kind of see what you can use. So for this one, we're just going to use the left, right? And then we'll go the text here, and we just want to give it the first 2. Let's go like that. Copy that down. Ooh. Oh, yeah. Maybe I'll do. Okay. Maybe this will help, and then you can actually like see what I'm doing here. Okay, let's change this back to track number. Okay. So now, okay, what's some way that we could get the artist out of there, right? So something that we can tell right off the bat here is there's a hyphen here and there's also a hyphen here. So maybe we should look for the second hyphen and see if we can just slice out this function here. So which text formula would we use to just do which one? Probably the mid, because we want it, because we're kind of taking something out of the middle. Okay, if we do the right, that forces us to use all of this data as well. Now, well, that might be right, but we don't want to be using that. So, because you could use a right, then use a left, in theory, and then that would give you the same idea as the mid. But we'll just to show you guys. So we'll do mid. So our text is the same here. Our start number, though, we know that it's always going to be. We don't want it to be looking at the start here. If we leave that out, it starts at 0, and it's going to say, okay, so we find this, but really we want to find this, right? Because we want to know the start and the end, okay? So we're actually have to make this a little more of complex formula. So we'll go, the start number is going to be 3, okay? Because we know it's always going to start at 3, so. But the real question is, okay, how many characters? So who kind of knows what we're going to want to do here? Some sort of find, right? Because we want to be able to find that second character. So let's do something like this. Well, I'm just going to put another parenthesis there. So I'm going to say find. We're going to find the text. Oops, parentheses like that. Within text, this. And instead of finding the first one, we want to find the second one, okay? So we want it to start looking at not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4, okay? Because we don't want it, if we look at anywhere over here, it's going to find this and it's going to say your answer is always going to be 3 there. That's only going to give us 3 length there. So let's change this. So we're going to say the start number is going to be 4. Close that. Close that. Close that. And let's hit enter and just kind of see what we've got. Okay, so we've got an issue here. So this is taking the whole length, but we want to, okay, we also need to subtract out. So this length here, this number of characters, we also need to subtract off these 3 at the beginning. So let's do that. So it's going to be fine. So that's going to give us this exact number. What are the equal to? Maybe it's 35 or 25, but we don't want to do 25 characters past number 3 because that's going to go past here. So we really need to take off the 3 from both sides. So I'm just going to subtract 3. Okay, hit 3, and okay, we still have one issue. So maybe we notice, oh, actually this wasn't 3 here, it's actually a 4. Let's hit 4. And we still got an issue here, so let's take off -4. Some of these you kind of have to play with a little bit because you may have got it started wrong. But start doing things that you know, and then maybe even make it into separate functions, and then make it into one mega formula. Because it may say you should have it all in that one formula place, okay? So one thing that so let's copy this down because I think there's an issue. So one issue that we notice right off the bat is right here. So see how there's this space here? How can we get rid of that? Trim. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to trim the whole thing. Trim, like this. Enter, Control C, copy it down, and ooh, voila, it looks great. What's one way that we can get rid of the underscore now? It's a different function in Excel. What's it called? Substitute. Perfect. So let's go up here and we'll go, I'm just going to substitute this. We see what we want, right? We have this Mumford underscore and underscore sons. Let's just go and substitute for this whole thing, right? So we'll substitute. The text that we have is going to be this, right? And then the old text that we're looking for is going to be an underscore. And then we want to replace it with just a space. Oh, and look at that. And we'll take this one step farther. How can we fix the capitalization and all this? Like, yeah, there's some weird that all have all caps and some not. What? Oh, yeah. And let's do this, and then we can make this a little bit bigger. Is that helpful? Okay, because I have the formula over here of what we're doing. What's one way that we can fix the capitalization? Do you guys remember? Proper, yeah. Proper is a great thing that just doesn't exist in many languages out there for manipulation. So we'll just do that. We'll highlight the whole thing, copy it down, and everything looks great. Okay. Any questions off that? No? Okay. So now we want to get the song title, okay? So let's use, maybe for here, let's try and use, do you guys want to use something different or you have a question? Oh, sorry, let's try that. Is that helpful? Okay. How would you guys go about getting the song title out of here? I'm going to use Flashfill just because we're kind of running out of time. Well, I don't want to spend too much time on this, so let's try this. Let's see if we can get Sigh No More, The Cave, for Wins. Let's see if we can get this. Go like this, data, Flashfill, doesn't like that. Oh, you know what, that's a good point. I'm just going to remove these cells here because sometimes it has a hard time if you don't have continuous data. See, now we are like, whoa, that's really big. Let's go like this. We kind of are continuous here. Let's try that. That's a good technique with this. Roll away. If it asks for a text formula, this is not a text formula. So I don't know who asked that question. Oh, there, sorry.
No, I mean removing cells though.
Oh, removing cells. Yeah, sorry. Don't remove the cells. If it should be right next to it, and this is just a review made by some TAs like 10 years ago, so who knows what's even the option here. But for simplicity, let's, oops, that's not what I want to do. Oh, actually, there we go. I got it to work now. Did everyone see how it's starting? And each computer is different. That's why I usually kind of veer away from Flashfill. Sometimes you've got issues. Your computer is you're gonna sit next to somebody, you're gonna have the exact same thing. It's gonna run differently. 2013, 2016 run completely differently. They have different algorithms, and for whatever reason they change. Any other questions about text formulas? Yeah.
Well, Flashfill only involve things on the left. Like you're gonna put anything on the right and Flashfill on the right.
From my understanding, better practices indicates to me yes. I haven't read any documentation on Flashfill because I usually veer away from using it because I like to be exact and make sure everything's exact, and the formula I want it to work always, not just sometimes kind of thing. So, any other questions on this? And I think we can even change this to Little Lion Man, and that should, oh, I did not like that. Anyway, so you'll notice that there's kind of like differences on that. Okay, any other questions about text? Yeah.
Well, so the instructions for this one just say that we're supposed to use text columns, so if we had done it
Oh.
this way, would we get it wrong?
Yes. I'm just trying to go over this because I think most people are familiar with text. Yeah. Like for text to column, the nice thing about this is we could just take this and export it using the Eliminator by the dash. Thank you. And here, actually, I'll just do that right here just so we can make sure we know how to do that. Let's click on that. We'll click text to columns. This is delimited, not fixed width. So we'll hit delimited. And I'm going to put other, and I'm going to put a hyphen in here. And you'll notice that it starts to actually make these into nice places. So we'll go here. We'll make sure these are the same. If we want to have the O1 at the front, we'll want to make this a text. You can click on each of these and say they're text, just kind of depending on how you want to work with them. And the destination, let's just put it right here. Let's hit finish. And that basically gave us the same idea. And then you can use text formulas to manipulate it. So, and that might be an option. So you might say, oh, I can use text to column, so I just only have this number and this, but I can't get this. But by using these two, I can write a text formula later to fix it. If it says you can use any method, like use what you're most comfortable with, or just do what's fastest. Like don't waste time on the test trying to like figure out how to write this really long dynamic formula type thing. Yeah.
So I used text columns in the top one when I was doing some math and was able to like trim off the MPG, which is not part of the first problem. But so the second one problem to use text to do that, or MP4, sorry.
Oh yeah.
And so I was like, well, I already did that, like, so I can't really write a formula.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? That's how would the grading work out, right? Like,
I don't think it's going to be that ambiguous on the test. You guys might feel it's ambiguous, but it's pretty like straightforward. Like use text to column to pull out maybe this one column, and we're not. And then because that's just we're trying to evaluate that. And if it wants to use the mid formula, just go and copy and redo the data. Like take out, don't delimit, because I think you can just add the period as a delimiter. That's probably what you did, I'm guessing. And then just take that off and redo it, and it will just take you a second. So, okay, mega formulas. Okay. I'm not going to go too in depth on this because I feel like everybody should kind of know how to do mega formulas. We may expect you to do a few steps and then basically make it into one single formula so we can delete the cells above. This problem, all it's looking for, just because I want to make sure we get to VBA, all you have to do is copy this cell and make sure it's into a mega formula. So you go like this, and you're going to equals this, right? Sure. So we have the same answer, but now instead of having these dependencies, so on A9, we need to go through and get the formula from A9 type of thing. I think you guys are familiar with doing that from the homework, so I'm not going to spend time doing that during the review. Any questions about mega formulas? Okay. So this is another fan favorite from this class. It's counting and summing using array functions and other methods. On the test, you may know how to use a COUNTIF or an array. It's usually not going to care unless it specifies use an array formula or don't use an array formula. If it doesn't, use whatever you're fastest at, whatever you're quickest at. Make sure you can count up the cells. You can do checks. You can write all over the exam like this. Just don't add any columns. Don't add any rows. That throws off the grading, okay? Causes some glitches in your grading. We'll have to go back and review your test. We'll probably look a little closer at your answers than when the computer is grading it, because it'll be a little more free with the grading. It'll be more favorable towards you, so just make sure you have everything in the right cell. So for this one, it says how many cells are in the table, not including headers, okay? So what's a good way to do this? Does anyone know? So we can do rows times columns. So let's do rows and make sure you don't have these backwards, right? Times columns. Hit enter, and we get 450 here. I think you can highlight this, and you'll notice in the bottom corner here, it's really small, but you can see count 150. So just to double check what you're doing there, so you can check on that as well. Another way to do this is you could use count A, and this should let us do the same thing. We may have to turn it into an array. Let's go like that, count A. And that also gave us 450. Which one to use? Doesn't matter unless it actually says use the rows formula, but yeah. Yeah, thank you for letting me know. And you want, I'm sure you want this, something like that. Is that helpful? Helpful? Okay. Without sorting the data, what is the sum of the 5 highest total bases? So who knows how we can do that? Anyone know what goes on the inside here? Large, that's a good thing. So we're looking at the highest total bases. So let's highlight this. And then in here, we make this lovely little thing like this. So this is of the highest 5. Since we're going on the large, it's going to do large from 1 to whatever. So we'll do the 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Hit enter, close that. And you don't have to do Control-Shift-Enter on here, even though I don't think it changes the answer. So that was 1257. 1250. Oh, here, running out of space here. That formula right there. I made it into an array, but it doesn't change the answer because this has an array embedded in it, and it's expecting that. So if you notice, it has on this side, you'll see that little curly brace, and that's where you actually put in the thing. So maybe you want to do the first, third, and fifth, sum those together, depending on what you're trying to do. What I would do, because I'm just like crazy and I get so worried that I did this formula wrong, is I'm just going to go like this. I'm going to sort these because it says without sorting, but if you sort the data now, like, we don't care because the idea is there's a formula rather than going like this. Let's see, it says the total highest. So let's go like this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we notice down here in the bottom, it just sums it for us, and it's 12,257, and that's our magical answer up there. So even if we resort the data or add more columns, it's going to actually figure that out for us. Yeah.
How do you quickly make that sort?
So, okay, so let me go back up here. So it's Control-Shift-L, or you can push this filter. It's going to look for this contiguous like data set here, and it notices these are all together. So just apply Control-Shift-L, and voila. And then it notices that all these are in table formula down here. You could also have turned this into a table, and it would have done the same idea, same type of thing. But for this, so it says how many teams have that's greater than 5,500 and a slugging percentage less than 0.425. So this one, I'm going to use a sum if, unless anyone has any other ideas. So let's do this. So we'll say sum if, or whoa, sum if. Oh. So it's a count, but the way that I'm going to do is I'm going to be summing it up, and I'm going to say if it meets this criteria, just count it 1, give it a 1, and then I'm going to sum all those up together. You can use COUNTIF, like the function COUNTIF, or COUNTIFs for and possibilities. If they're all ands, all of those have to be true for you to count that. So you could use COUNTIFs in this situation as well. I'm going to use SUMIF just because it's a little harder to use, and we can go over those if we have time at the end. So we'll say SUMIF, and then the idea is the teams have bats greater than 55. Let's see, at bats. So let's go here. I'm just going to copy this down. And I'm going to say greater than 5,500. And since it's an and, okay, I'm also going to put these all in parentheses because for, gosh, I know that's really small. Let me try, whoops, let's try Control. Okay, that's not going to let me zoom in while I'm in here. I put everything in parentheses because it just kind of keeps my order of operations clear and just kind of for me to know what I'm actually doing. I'm going to multiply them together because the idea is it's going to look at this entire array and it's just going to say true or false based on that criteria. And a true becomes a 1 and a false is a 0. So if we type them together, it's going to have to say this is going to have to be true and this criteria is going to be true on whatever other column we're using. So it's going to be true times true is a 1 because 1 times 1. If either of these are false, it's going to be 0 for the whole thing. Okay. So, and a slugging percentage less than. Let's go here. and the slugging percentage less than 0.425. We'll close that. And so the idea is, I'm also going to add a little times here. I think it'll do it automatically. So now we're going to say, okay, so that first criteria times that first criteria on that one column is true. We want it to give it a 1. So then it's going to sum all those up. Everywhere there's a 1, it's going to count it just as one time. Now let's do a 1 and a 0. Close that out. Hit Control-Shift-Enter. Looks like I had an issue. Did anybody else get 10? Did anyone check it? Maybe using COUNTIFs?
Did you say you did Control-Shift-Enter?
I did, because it is an array, because the idea is it's actually doing different. Oh, there we go. It's actually doing 2 sets of arrays here, and it's going to multiply those together. And so wherever they're both true, it's going to allow us to count it one time rather than multiple times. Maybe you want to count it twice if they're both true. Like, you can really add some criteria there. Okay. Let's see. I'm just going to do number 5. You can check number 4. I'm just sort of running low on time here. How many teams have greater than 30 triples or greater than 150 home runs and a batting average of less than 0.27? So I'm going to do the same thing, sum. And I'm going to do an if. And let me just get rid of that. The logical test is how many teams have greater than 30 triples. So right here. I'm also going to put these all in parentheses just because I want to keep them straight. Greater than 30 or, wait, greater than 30 or, so this is going to be a plus because either one has to be true to make it an actual valid, right? Because if it meets either of those criteria, we want to count it, okay? And then also it also has to have a greater batting average than less than 0.27, okay? So I'm going to go like this, and I'm going to say, or home runs, let's go here. Home runs, let's see, greater than 150. Oops, greater than 150. And then now I'm going to actually put all of this in its own separate parentheses. And then I'm going to multiply it by, because it says either one of those criteria has to be true. So that's where we come in the plus there. And this criteria has to be true. So we're saying we have these 2 conditions, right? Either, so we can do a plus here. So if it's 1 or 2, it doesn't matter. Because if they're both true, it's just going to be 2. And then we're going to have a true false column here. So and then we're going to multiply them together. So if this is false at any spot, it's going to do 0. It's going to say false, 0 across the board. So it's not going to be able to count it. So let's do a batting average. Let's try this. Is that helpful?
Yeah.
Okay, a batting average. So there's my batting average. Less than 0.27. Close that. We'll close the other one. Now we're going to say, oops, logical test 1 or 0. Oops, close it again. Hit enter. 19. I'm curious now. Maybe we should check the answers.
I think you're putting the or on the wrong side.
Am I doing this wrong? Did I do some? Let's
I
see.
don't know, you can read it either way, but
Yeah,
I'm reading-
Oh,
Like, how do we know whether or not the and is connected to the first or to both ors?
yeah,
Does that make sense in the question?
so you.
it could be read 2 ways.
How many teams have 30 triples or 150? So what I would start doing is with the.
Does that make
Oh,
sense?
I see what you're saying. You're saying or this and that.
Yeah.
No, I read it. But
I want to say on the test, I can't say for sure. If you feel justified in the way you solved it, let us know because we've made a lot. Last semester, Dr. Masuri put something called and or on this test, and it really threw a lot of people. But we took it out because it literally caused like widespread just really discontent in the class because like everybody had an issue with it. So if there's something ambiguous, what Dr. Masuri will do is he'll look kind of to see how you've set your formula up, and he might accept both ways. So he might calculate it this first way, like 19, and he'd say, okay, you got 19, plus I see you have an array, I see you're using sum, I see you're looking at these cells, like you probably have about the right answer here, right? Or you did it kind of the opposite way, and that's kind of how he'll look at it. If for some reason he hasn't built that into the case, let us know. It should be pretty obvious from the test what to sum and which goes with which.
So
Because-
did you just a little bit bigger as well?
Yeah, let me go like this. Formula. Is that helpful there? Is that, there you go. My laptop is like microscopic, so this is like huge to me, so I apologize. I'm not used to that. Okay,
On the answer sheet, it says
22, so maybe,
What they did is they didn't put anything in, like, they just put two of the categories in a big parentheses. They just put batting average, home runs times batting average.
so you guys are saying that maybe it's like this. Let's try that. 22. So I just swapped it, saying like that other condition that we all agreed on. So 19 or 22 for this option. I think in my review I said, oh, I think there's a typo on this, because in my mind I would read this or this, and like it probably should say and also, right? Would that make sense? So for this one,
In addition.
yeah, and the test should be pretty. It's been tested a few years, so hopefully we've kind of worked all the little bugs out for it. But yeah, does anyone have any questions on this? I'm going to go over the frequency here just because I didn't do this on my video last time and I just blew right through it, didn't even notice it. So you can use like multiple ways. I'm going to use count ifs just because I want to show you guys that you can use this. So our first criteria range is going to be, so this is saying the minimum for at bats, right? So we're always going to be using this right here. And we're saying the criteria, it has to be greater than or equal to this column and also less than or equal to this, right? Those are our two criteria. Okay, so first we will go like this. So it's kind of weird when you do greater than or less than with count ifs. That's why sometimes I veer away from them, because you have to do this really weird thing. So we're going to say greater than or equal to ampersand this value here. And then our criteria range 2 is still going to be this. I'm just going to type it in here, D16 to D45. And then the criteria is going to be less than, wait, I'm doing this wrong. Less than or equal to, oops, sorry here. I'm also just going to go and make these absolute so we can copy this down. Does anyone see any errors with my formula here? That's right. An easy way to check this is we show that there's 79 here, and I think that's a problem. Oh, did I do this wrong? Oh. Yeah, let me go like this, formula text, like that. Oops. Okay. So that's the reason why I don't like to use these sometimes, because you could also do, you could do a sum if in this situation as well and just do the same thing, and you would just do times these two criteria, because you would say this criteria times this criteria and just sum all those up. And so that's why sometimes it might be easier to do that, might make more sense. But then you're dealing with array formulas and somebody doesn't do Control-Shift-Enter and screws up your formula, and it just like mayhem, right? So COUNTIFs can kind of work out a little better for us. Okay, are there any other questions on summing techniques? Okay, make sure you're familiar with that. Have your homework open, ready to review. Look through the problems just kind of so you know how to answer certain problems. If you got them wrong, come to the TAs. And if you don't know how to fix it, let's try and get those right. I'm not going to spend, because I want to spend like the last 10 minutes on VBA. So I'm just going to show you this. Please convert the following units. So this will be like very simple. You use the convert function, right? And you open it up. Whoa, convert. Okay. we'll say our number is here from unit. You'll probably want to scroll through here because you usually can't reference what you're looking for. So this one's saying from, I don't know, what's the other side? Miles, probably to kilometers or something. Yeah, so let's just go down here. Woo.
Do we have to reference it or can we just write it?
I would say you shouldn't have to reference it. Why am I not? I don't know why that's not in there. Just because they do some weird conventions on some of these. So you can't always say like MI is mile. They do some different conventions. So you might want to just make sure you're clicking on the right thing if this happens to appear on the final. You can look on the exam, on the answers how to do these. This one that was kind of weird, 2 significant digits. The answer is like totally crazy, and I don't know how you would know how to do this. So, but the point of it is that you can go online and quickly search. So I just went on Google and I said 2 significant digits Excel, and oh, guess what? I found this link in like 5 seconds, and it's basically the exact same formula. They did it like differently. They did 1 minus this, but it's the same idea, and it'll give you the same answer there. So if there's something that's like wasn't covered in class, it might be in the book, but your chances are probably gonna be a lot better just Google searching what you're looking for. You find the formula, and you know, let's go with that. Okay, so that's just kind of keep that in mind. We've had some kind of like discussions on getting rid of this off of here, but the idea is that you may encounter something that you're just never seen before, and shouldn't be. It'll be like 1 point or something. Like it's not going to be like life changing on your grade. Yeah. Oh. Okay. Perfect. Okay. So let's go to the VBA section. So one thing to make sure, I think when you download this worksheet, it's going to be a .xlsm file, but just please, please, please make sure you save yours as a .xlsm file. And probably before you start doing your program, your assignment, make sure you have the developer tab, things like that, ready to go, so you don't spend time worrying about that. Just as a reminder, you can go to File, Account, Options, and you can click on this Customize toolbar, and you just need to click the developer tab on or off if it's turned off, because you may do this on a library computer or something, or someone else's computer, so you have multiple screens, multiple computers, backups if it crashes, you know, things like that. Yeah.
As we're like talking about stuff on the computers, so is Power Pivot not going to be on the exam? Because I don't have.
We're not going to expect you to do any calculations using Power Pivot or Power Review. However, no guarantees, no promises, but there probably will be like a question or two. But it should, if you came to class that day, you should be able to find out. If you didn't come to class or have no idea what we did because you were surfing the web because your computer didn't work, you should be able to Google it, because it's going to be like pretty obvious things. Like it's going to, I don't know. It's not going to be like, so if you were to do this, you need to link these tables true or false. Like, no, we're not going to ask you questions like that, because that's out of the scope of this class. It's going to be like, why would you use Power View over like Excel? And there'll be like some pretty distinct answers. You'll be able to tell the difference between the two. Like, why is the difference? Power View can be used, you can use like 10 times as many lines. You can use millions and millions of rows of data, whereas Excel has a limitation to like a very fixed number of rows. So those types of questions. Is that okay? So we added our developer tab. We're going to go to our Visual Basic here. So you'll notice something may open up here, and you might be like, oh yeah, I've already typed this. Please make sure, if you notice along the side here, there's different files. So if you have multiple files open, it will put each one of your files up over here. So if you notice, we're actually working on final review. So usually I'll resave my exam. I would save it as like Logan's exam or something, because we don't care what you name it. You can name it whatever you want, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All that we really care about is that you filled out your name, filled out your net ID, and please, 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 please do that. Do it correctly, because it really expedites importing your scores into Learning Suite. Otherwise, it can take longer, and you're not going to know your scores soon. You might get the email back, but it's going to take a while to get it updated in Learning Suite. So please do that. So you'll notice I have 2 of these open. So let's go back to my developer tab. But I want to make sure that I'm in final review _fall 2013. And you'll notice, OK, click here. And oh, I actually don't have any modules. So please also, when you're making your VBA, make a module. You will lose points if you do not do that. Did everyone catch that? You will lose points if your functions are not in a module, because that is how you should be doing it. So, you know, there are some use cases to write. Excel is really tricky. You can write functions here, like on this workbook or this sheet, and yeah, they work great, but it's really not the correct way because it really limits the scope of where these work. Because if you make something on sheet 1, like a VBA thing, it only works on sheet 1. You cannot use it on sheet 2 or sheet J, whatever. If you make a module, it makes it global and available on your whole worksheet. So one easy way to do that, you can click anywhere as long as you're on this. I like to click right on here, right click, and I click insert module. You can also get to it from the bar up here, insert module, okay? And you'll notice it gives us this nice little module. You can rename it if you want, but no worries, exam. Like I'll just change mine to exam. See, now it's called exam. Don't need to do that. Don't worry about it. So this one says create a macro that does the following to any cell. Makes the font bold, makes the fill light green, makes the font size 16. Assign the following shortcut to Control H. If you see that, what is your first indication if it says assign a shortcut to it? Record. Just record it, do it. Just don't forget about it. So like anybody should be able to do this first problem. If you've ever recorded a macro, which I hope that all of us have. So it says test your macro in cell F8. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a few of them in here just so we can test it again. Okay. So first of all, we're going to click on this cell here and we're going to say record macro. And it says, oh, it doesn't say on the test. Pretty much it'll always say assign your macro to be called test 1 or Joe's macro or bold text, something like that. So I'm just going to call mine test practice because it doesn't really matter. And it has to be to Control H. So just kind of be aware. Here, let me make this a little bigger. So I can do Control H here. I can put an H here. But if you hold Control Shift H and you put a shift, ooh, let's go like this, Shift H. Gosh, I gotta be careful how I say that. It adds a shift there. So just kind of, if you put a capital letter in there, so just kind of keep an eye. It'll be lowercase or uppercase on the test. And we'll be looking for that. So now we'll hit OK. There's already a macro named that. Because I probably have the answers open, I'm going to just put it to J or something. You might not have that issue. I have the answers open, and that macro is conflicting with this one. Okay, I'm going to make my Control J. Whoa, that's probably what I did last time. Let's do R maybe. Okay. So you'll notice because I created this. Wow, let me zoom out. You'll notice because I created this, it's creating a new module here. And if you double click on this, you can actually watch the macro being written as you're writing it. So if you're really curious how something works, you can click on the module one. It always makes a new one on top of something you've already been working in. So I'm going to click on this cell. Oh, one thing, sorry, I'm going to hit stop here. One thing I didn't do is when we do this, we want to use relative references because we want this to work on whatever cell that is actually selected when you start the recording, okay? So I think on the exam, they might say that it should work on any cell. If it doesn't, then don't worry too much about it. But let's hit use relative references. So that's saying that if I run it on this cell, it's going to run it on the cell that it started in, just like relative to this macro. So let's hit record macro again. So now everybody's going to have a bunch of macros. This one's going to be Control E, I guess. We'll hit OK. And then it says make the font bold. So we'll hit bold. And you'll notice that you'll start seeing the code starts filling out there, OK? Font bold makes the fill light green. When it says light green, just don't pick this screen, OK? Just pick any of these that are light, OK? Don't make it too complicated. It's not like green accent 6 is going to be different than this one, OK? When Dr. Mercervi grades this, he's going to see it. And if you use red, you're going to lose a point there, OK? So follow the instructions. So we'll use this one. It says change the font to light green. So if you notice, it starts filling all this out for us, which is nice. We love the record. Makes the function, makes it size 16. And that's all we have to do. So now then we go and we hit stop. So we can go back to our developer and hit stop recording. And now if we do, so this is Control E, right? So now if we go Control E on any of these cells, it should do that exact same formatting. Is anyone's not working? No? Okay, perfect. Okay, then this one says create a user-defined function name direction that uses the select case. Okay, I don't think we covered, did we cover select case in this class? Okay, then we're just gonna use if statements. We're not gonna throw anything new at you at the VBA. It should have been covered in class. So I'm just gonna use if statements since we should be able to. I'm gonna make sure I'm in my module. I'm gonna make sure I double click that I'm in my exact file that I'm working on. Like double check a million times because you do not want to screw that up. We'll click over here, okay? And we start it by writing function called direction, right? So this is going to take a direction input, okay? So it doesn't matter unless we specify what this variable is called. I'd probably just use ABRV because that's going to be the input, right? So that's what we're going to put up in this function up here. So I'm going to say ABRV as, you don't have to put as here. If you leave it off, it just thinks it's a variance. So let's just leave it off and yeah, sorry. Is that better for you? Okay, so it says ABRV. So we can put an as here, but we don't need to. If you leave it off, it just goes to variance. So let's just keep it closed. You can also say, what's the output going to be? We can say as, like we know this is going to be a string, right? But we can leave it off. We're going to get kicked out, but I'm going to just hurry through this. So we hit enter and it starts filling this out. So we're going to say, if ABRV is equal to north, right? Then direction, because that's what our function's name is going to be north. Else if ABRV is equal to east, then, it's starting to yell at me because I've just done this wrong. Else if direction is equal to east, else if ABRV is equal to south, then direction is equal to south. Else, because we know there's not going to be any other conditions, then we'll just put an else here and we'll say direction is equal to west. Or actually, let's go like this, else if abbreviation is equal to west, then west, and then we'll say else direction is equal to not a direction. And if, okay, now let's go over here. Okay, so now let's go over here and we'll check this. So we should have had a function named direction, and we'll see it pop up there. We'll click on cell C17 as our input, and it's lovely. It just copies all these down for us. The nice thing is if we put in a T here, we wrote something extra that says not a direction, but there's that for you. Does anyone have any last questions about the final? Okay, thanks for coming to the class this semester. I hope everyone does super well. If you're still struggling with the VBA, go online or you can watch. There's a video there, and don't feel like alone in the VBA. There are a lot of people who struggle with VBA in this class, and it's a difficult topic because we're just kind of throwing you into the river that you don't know how to swim in, right? So hopefully, if you struggle with that, go online, go watch the PowerPoint, watch my YouTube video. You can kind of watch through some examples that really just kind of go over concepts that should help you on the test, I think, because it's going to be something new. You really just need to know your concepts and be able to type them out really quickly, right? Because you don't want to lose any time. And if you're struggling with VBA, do VBA last on your exam. Focus on the other points. Get your other points rather than spending an hour on VBA to get 15 points. So, all right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Logan.